Rain continues to pour in KwaZulu-Natal, which was already hit by heavy downpours earlier this week. The South African Weather Services has warned of continuing high wind and rain, bringing the risk of more flooding in KwaZulu-Natal and some other provinces over the Easter weekend. Let's get you more on the situation. We're joined by meteorologist at the South African Weather Services, Lehlohonolo, Thobela. Thank you very much for availing yourself this evening. I think maybe for the purpose of our viewers, let's just bring up this graphic and you can perhaps just talk us through these details. You have issued an alert level 4 or yellow level 4 warning. Firstly, what does that mean, and are we still there?
Okay, good evening and thanks for having me. Yes, we have actually a number of warnings for tonight. We have firstly a yellow level 2, and they're all for disruptive rainfall, but the difference in the levels is just the impact and the severity of it happening. So I guess in a level 2, level 4 would have a significance of the impact will be higher and the likelihood would be low. And in a yellow level 2 warning would be for minor impact by high likelihood of the flooding and disruptive rain happening. So we're still expecting an 80% chance of showers and thunder showers, mainly for the eastern parts, including Gauteng, KZN, northeastern parts of Northwest, and the eastern parts of the Free State Province, as well as the high-felt areas of Mpumalanga. That's an 80% chance of showers and thunder showers. Otherwise, the surrounding areas from the central parts to the eastern parts should be isolated to scattered showers and thunder showers still expected for tonight into tomorrow, being the whole percentage being remaining the same. Although tomorrow the warning still remains, but it becomes a yellow level 2, so that we should say that the minor impacts will be the one prevailing. However, the likelihood of the flooding and disruptive rain still continues over Gauteng province, eastern parts of the northwest, and parts of the central and also along the coastal areas of KZN tomorrow, as well as the high veld of Mpumalanga.
To the north of KwaZulu-Natal, you have Swaziland and you have Mozambique, and we've seen in some Southern African nations at the beginning of this year, at least, experiencing heavy rains and some cyclones. Are we there yet where KwaZulu-Natal is concerned? And what would take us if we're not to that level that we saw in other countries like Malawi and Mozambique?
I mean, in terms of cyclones and systems, this was a mid-latitude system which was colder than what cyclones bring. However, it started to develop and act like a tropical cyclone over the coastal areas. However, yes, we are still experiencing amounts of rainfall. We are in a season where such systems are starting to develop, which are called cut-off lows, which are upper air systems which recently develop. If they're strong, they move into the surface, resulting in these heavy conditions of rainfall, resulting into floods. So we are not in a tropical season now, as we are to move into autumn. I mean, we're in a process of leaving late summer, so we are moving closer and closer to a season where we're expecting colder conditions and probably some snow in high-lying areas should the systems be associated with cut-off lows and cold fronts, and it's that time of the year.
And on that point, right, some have attributed this to climate change. Is this an accurate description?
I mean, with climate change, then we'd have to talk to a climatologist. I mean, with a meteorologist, I would keep forecasts from day to day and keep nowcasting. However, if it's climate change related, the climatologist would tell you better. But what I would not let go of is that these conditions are to happen. They're drastically increasing in amounts of how we're having heavy rainfall resulting into flooding. But in climate change, I can't really say a lot about.
Fair enough. What does the terrain of KwaZulu-Natal have to do with what we are seeing? Some parts of it are quite hilly. Is there anything that we can draw from that?
I mean, if you look at areas like Ladysmith, these conditions usually happen due to areas being built under floodplain. So low-lying areas are usually prone to having flooding when we're having heavy amounts of rainfall. If you look at the past days, I mean, we'd have 300 millimeters of rainfall falling within 24 hours. That's quite a huge amount, or an amount of water to measure to be around the floodplain. So areas that are in the low-lying areas, they are prone to having floods, which is why we are seeing such conditions. And I mean, with waterlogged roads and everything, destruction is to happen, especially to areas that are low-lying.
You mentioned a little bit earlier on, or you alluded to a recurrence of such weather patterns. In that event, what then needs to be done? Is there anything?
You mean in terms of
the forecast and us knowing then how to prepare?
Yeah, I mean, the basis of it is to focus on the warning systems. We, as South African Weather Service, we always issue warnings ahead for such problems, and these are sent to the disaster management. And I would also obviously urge the public to always focus on listening on such shows like now, and also watching more shows about the news on what is to come, and follow the South African weather pages so that they are aware of the warnings that are sent out. However, the disaster managements are the ones that are to decide on the impact and whether to alert the public whether they should evacuate or how they should act due to the warnings that we send to them.
Meteorologist at the South African Weather Services, Lehlohonolo Thobela, thank you very much for availing yourself this evening, rather.